So how do we actually know what people do? I mean, not what they say they're going to do, but what they really do. Well, today we're going to crack open the Social Scientist Toolkit and take a look inside.
Okay, let's be real for a second. Have you ever, told yourself, this is the week I'm hitting the gym every day, and then you don't? Or maybe you swear you'll start eating healthy, and a few hours later you find yourself on the couch with a bag of chips. Hey, don't worry about it, we have all been there. You see, that little gap, the one between what we plan to do and what we actually do, that's a goldmine for social scientists. It's what they live to understand. So if they can't just take our word for it, how in the world do they get to the truth? Well, it turns out they have this amazing toolkit, and today we're going to pull out the 3 biggest, most important tools they use. All right, first up, the most foundational tool in the entire kit. Before a researcher even thinks about asking a question, they start with something super simple. They just watch. This is called observation, and you can think of it like their own personal spyglass into how we all behave.
So observation is all about watching people in their natural habitat, right? Seeing how they act when they're not stuck in some sterile lab. And the most important part, it's all about collecting data on what people do, not what they say they do. No questions asked, just pure, simple watching.
Now, this whole observation thing comes in a couple of different flavors. First, there's direct observation. That's pretty straightforward, like a researcher literally sitting in the back of a classroom watching a lesson. But, and this is where it gets clever, you can also watch indirectly. Instead of watching kids eat their lunch, you could just measure the food left on their plates afterward. See? Both methods tell you what was eaten, but they come at it from totally different angles.
And then there's the deep dive version, participant observation. This is where a researcher doesn't just watch from the sidelines, they actually become part of the group. I mean, can you imagine spending months, maybe even years, living inside a community just to understand it? It's a massive commitment for sure, but sometimes it's the only way to truly get that inside perspective on a culture.
Okay, so just watching sounds easy enough, right? But here's the catch. The person doing the watching is a human, and our human brains are just full of these little shortcuts and biases that can totally mess with what we see. Let's look at a few of the biggest ways this can go sideways.
First on the list is something called the halo effect. You know how this works. It's when just one good quality about someone makes us think everything about them is great. So a researcher might see a student who's always neatly dressed and super polite, and because of that halo, they might subconsciously rate that student's work as being better than it actually is. It's all based on that one good first impression.
Next, you've got the error of leniency. This one's pretty simple. It's when the observer just plain likes the person they're watching. And because they like them, they might go a little easy on them in their notes, They'll overestimate the good stuff and kind of gloss over the not-so-good stuff. And boom, right there, your objective research is out the window.
And finally, there's the error of central tendency. This is the play it safe bias. The observer avoids any extreme ratings. No one's terrible, but no one's amazing either. Everybody just lands somewhere in the middle. It's like giving everyone a 3-star rating. The big problem here is that you totally lose the nuance. You can't tell who's knocking it out of the park and who really needs help.
So when you think about all these biases that can creep in, it becomes super clear that researchers have this huge ethical weight on their shoulders. The number one rule, the guiding principle, is simple. The people being studied always come first. Their rights, their privacy, their safety, all of it. It's absolutely non-negotiable. So observation is awesome for figuring out what people are doing, but it has a big blind spot. It can't tell you why. And to get the why, you've got to get inside someone's head. So researchers have to switch gears from watching to asking. And that brings us to the second major tool in the toolkit, the interview.
Now, a research interview isn't just, a casual chat over coffee. It's a very deliberate, carefully planned conversation. It has a specific goal, which is to get at some very specific information. It's really a technique for digging way deeper than what you can just see on the surface.
And interviews aren't one size fits all. They exist on a spectrum. On one end, you've got the super informal, conversational interview where you just go with the flow. On the complete other end, you have these very rigid, structured interviews that are almost like a multiple-choice test spoken out loud. It's always a trade-off, right? The casual style might lead you to some amazing, unexpected places, but the structured one makes it way easier to compare answers from a bunch of different people.
And this really shows you that a proper research interview is a serious, scientific process. It's so much more than just the chat itself. There's all this work that goes into it, the planning, the transcribing every single word, analyzing it all, and then double-checking to make sure the findings are actually valid. It's a full-on investigation, from the first step to the last.
Okay, so interviews give you that rich, deep understanding. But they don't really scale. I mean, you can't interview thousands and thousands of people. It would take forever. So what do you do when you need to gather info from a massive group? You pull out the third tool, what I like to call the megaphone of research, the questionnaire.
A questionnaire is exactly what it sounds like, a list of questions designed to gather information. But its real superpower is efficiency. With a good questionnaire, researchers can collect an absolutely massive amount of data from a huge number of people fast. It's really the backbone of pretty much any big survey you've ever heard of.
But here's the thing. Writing a good questionnaire is an art form. It's really tricky. Every single question has to be crystal clear. It has to be totally neutral. You can't ask a double-barreled question that's asking two things at once, because then you have no idea what they're actually answering. And you definitely can't write a leading question that pushes them toward a certain answer. At the end of the day, the goal is just to get the most honest, accurate information you possibly can.
So here's a puzzle. How do you measure something you can't even see, like someone's attitude or opinion? Well, researchers use scales, and I guarantee you've seen these a million times. It's when you're asked to rate something on a scale from strongly agree to strongly disagree. These are really clever tools designed to do one simple but powerful thing: turn a subjective feeling into a hard number that you can actually measure and analyze.
Okay, so let's recap. We've got our 3 core tools: watching people with observation, asking them deep questions with interviews, and asking lots of people with questionnaires. The final piece of the puzzle, the mark of a great researcher, is knowing exactly which tool to pull out of the box and when.
And here's the big takeaway from all of this. There is no single best method. It all depends on the question you're trying to answer. If you want to know what people do, you observe them. If you want to know why they do it, you interview them. And if you want to know how many people are doing it, you send out a questionnaire. Simple as that. The real pros are the ones who are masters at picking the perfect tool for the job at hand.
So there you have it, a quick peek inside the Social Scientist Toolkit. Now, the next time you're scrolling and you see a headline about some new study, I want you to stop and ask yourself, wait, how did they figure this out? Did they watch people, or did they just ask them? Because now that you know about the tools, you can look at all of this research with a much smarter, more critical eye.